It is such a powerful word. Where there is life, there is hope. But where hope has gone, life may stay on, but life changes when hope is gone. Oscar Wilde, in his ballad from Reading Jail, he said, "Something was dead in each of us, and what was dead was hope." Or Richard III, in his forlorn and forsaken state, angrily sobbed, "I shall despair. There is no creature loves me, and if I die, no soul will pity me. Nay, wherefore should they, since that I myself find in myself no pity to myself?" And then Dante, at the very gates of hell, read above his head, "Through me is the way to the sorrowful city. Through me is the way to eternal suffering. Through me is the way to join the lost people. Abandon all hope, you who enter here." St. Paul put that word as top of the three virtues. But the poet Matthew Arnold, reflecting how sadness had put a pause on life's headlong train, he wrote, "The foot less prompt to meet the morning dew, the heart less bounding at emotion new, and hope once crushed less quick to spring again." How powerful the word. Just a word. But more powerful still, the experience that word describes. That word of hope. Make use of hope. We all do so, or it is within our power to do so, as we speak that word. Hope. A father in a spasm of anger, a teacher with low level of control, says to the impressionable youth, "You are a no-hoper." And just as we are about to utter our condemnation, we remember that we've said that once or twice ourselves, of this group or that, just a bunch of no-hopers. And without a pause to wonder what those words might mean to the receiver, we pass on, leaving the receiver with a load of cycled and recycled resentment. There are three groups, I think, of hopers. There are the high hopers. They cope better with adversity. They have better relationships. They engage in better health behaviours. They have a better sense of who they are in themselves. They are the high hopers. But then there's a second group, the no-hopers. They are not good decision makers. They select friends that are not good for them. They adopt behaviours that are not good for them. They make judgments that are not good for them. And so we say they're in a no-hoping situation, they're no-hopers. And then the third group is the race-going hopers, especially evident in this week with the Melbourne Cup and the Melbourne Racing Carnival sitting right on top of us. The race-going hopers are always hoping to win, even when they don't know the name of a horse in a race. They put their bets, hoping that something might happen, but knowing that it won't happen, or it's not likely to happen. What is it? They learn quickly that hope tantalizes with its promise and also with its unreliability. Like the poker machine hopers, they are readily swept along in the belief that low hopers can be suddenly turned into high hopers. And so it happens occasionally. And that helps to give them the impetus to go on. But the high hoper's personality is a person who has become a consistent high hoper, part of their personality over a longer period of time. Quite distinct from people where hope comes and goes and we can't make much of it, or hope which goes with the horse race or the poker machines or the this or the that. Well, I'm going to take you into some of the workings of hope today. How does it work? Because it's such a powerful word and such an important experience. How can we make it work? How can we make it work for us? The young person who serves me at the Camberwell market every Saturday morning gives me the correct change, and then she says, "I hope you have a good week." Now, she doesn't have the faintest idea who I am or what my week is going to be like and what I'm going to be doing. She simply recognises that I'm the same person who was there last Saturday, and I'll be there again, I hope, next Saturday. Whether she hopes I will be there or not, I don't know. Whether she really does hope that I'll have a good week, or whether she hopes that I'll not fall over the plank that's on the footpath just outside the door, I don't know. She simply says the word, and she inserts another word in front of it. Good. I hope you'll have a good week. It could have been the opposite. I hope you'll have a good week. I hope you'll have a good life. I hope you'll have a good trip home. I hope you'll return and make a good return to me next week. Hope, hope, hope. We want to have hope on our side. But so often hope comes and it goes. What is it? Well, it's a wish, isn't it? It's a desire. But what follows? In order for the wish to be fulfilled, in order for the wish to really happen, we need to take action. It needs action. There is the belief that if I take some action, that hope, the word hope, is more likely to be fulfilled. If I act appropriately, carefully, I will return next week. There is a goal in all of this. And there is the emotion of pleasure. She says something, I react. She sees that I react and she feels pleasure. So there is the emotion of pleasure, which in turn will possibly make me a high hoper. That's life, isn't it? We hope it will be like hope again. So take this into the examination scene this next week, this next few weeks in the schools and the universities. Jenny, she says, I hope to get high marks in these exams. There is the hope. There is the desire. There is the goal. But it needs action. It needs planned, systematic action. She is the agent of that action. If she doesn't take some action, the hope will be just a vague hope. Or there might be something else to it yet. We then run into a little messy situation. Some people have a belief based on past experience. If I don't do any work, I'm more likely to pass than if I do any work. Based on the expectation of the family history. They say, Jenny always does well in the examinations, so Jenny on that basis doesn't do any work. Does she do well? We'll wait and see. A belief that she will get a belief is part of a hope. But she cannot predict, really, what will be on the examination paper. She cannot predict the mood of the marker of that examination paper. That matters, you know, the marker, his or her mood. Nor can she predict the level of achievement of the other people doing the examination. That may affect her result. And so luck comes into the equation. And not far away is the emotion of fear and jealousy, anxiety, self-depreciation, and all kinds of self-distortions. So there it is. A similar pathway may be followed in other areas of life. Hope, you see, is a goal, a desired objective. It is a motivational state. It is a pathway to coping. It is a belief in resources of courage to overcome obstacles. It contains a moral direction. It may even have a theological virtue. To the worst situation, the God of the Psalms speaks, as we heard this morning. There's a pathway to follow, a meaningful alternative to the being in the pits. There's a sacred moment when we discover strength, as the poem today depicted. The strength of a presence, the strength of a quietness, the strength of what is within us. Well, Jenny also had long held onto another hope, that she would marry and have 3 children before she was 30 years of age. That she would have a house of her own and a BMW to drive. Well, now she's 50. She is not married and she has no children and she does not have a house, and the BMW that she once thought she would have keeps passing her by as she goes to work each morning. Is she hopeless? Oh no. She's changed her hope. Along the course of her earlier years, she became an excellent pianist. She became a teacher of piano and extended herself into other instruments. She derives high pleasure in her job now, in helping young and old with their music. She gave away her wish to own a BMW. They're too costly to run anyway, she said. So she was able to placate her desire. She gave away her idea of owning her own house. She says, I'm a happy renter because I don't have to worry about a garden and I don't have to clean out the spouts. Somebody else does it for her. So she has real regrets, of course, that she didn't marry, that she didn't have her own children. She said, I hope I made a positive contribution to other people's lives. I hope I've made a positive adjustments to the circumstances that did not fall in place for me. I hope I've come to terms with the bad luck that came my way at a certain point in my life. Certain things didn't happen when I hoped they would. I hope to have made a good adjustment. So there you have it. You have the desire, the goal, the action needed for that goal to be effectuated. And there's the management of her emotions. There's the settlement of the nagging possibility of good luck and bad luck. And then there is the pathway. There is the pathway to make a worthwhile life for the future. So a similar process can be adopted, can be followed in times of suffering, in times of loss and grief. Hope continues to require a goal. It doesn't just sit there, or it becomes empty. Hope requires a goal, an action, a pathway. It requires the management of emotions, the recovery of a belief in alternatives, in the promise of alternatives, in the settlement of luck. And difficult as it is, it then requires us to look for that pathway, the pathway, in spite of everything and because of those things, a pathway to a worthwhile life in the future. We all need to stay alert to the pathways of being high hopers. High hoping people, any one of us, all of us, can find that the high hoping we once had and once trusted, can change. The high hope that we once thought was there and would always be there suddenly disappeared. Life circumstances, bad luck, wrong decisions. So the hope that we had up there suddenly, slowly perhaps, drops down several pegs, or indeed can drop down to zero. We may not become no-hopers in the sense that I used it earlier, that people fling as a pejoratively at other people, you're just a no-hoper. Not in that sense. We may become no-hopers in the sense that we feel that there is no hope for us. Because in some situations of living and suffering and sadness and sickness and dying, we come to a point where there is no hope for what we would have hoped could continue. So when that situation occurs, we then need to ask the question, how is hope restored? Can we find a substitute? Or can we develop an alternative? Where can we find that new courage to be? A new way of being, as the scriptures from the New Testament said today. When so many shadows gather around us, shadows of non-being, have been cast across our life, our pathway, how can we then, is it possible to discover a new way of being? Sometimes our original or our early platform on which our hope was based was inadequate. Inadequate in some way, and so in the fire of testing in life, it collapses. Or it can be that our strongly established hope platform, established over a lifetime, it too can be eroded. Or it can be knocked out of place by some event, some loss, some trauma. In some instances, the damage is temporary. And a reconstruction begins spontaneously. Often we don't need much help. We don't need to do much about it. It starts to regather itself. The wound heals spontaneously. In other situations, the damage lasts. The hopeless situation becomes persistent, and we tend to succumb to a lost hope. It then leads us to join with something else. That's something else to help us re-find our hope again. Something else which is often real to our experience but cannot be measured by the psychological instruments that are presently available to us. But it's a real experience. That's something else. We need it. Even though we may not be able to define it or measure it, we do need it. That's something else, maybe what St. Paul called part of his 3 reminders of faith, hope, and love. Hope needs its 2 companions. We don't know how they fit together, but they need each other. That interpersonal bonding and rebonding, that awakening of an animated meaning in life, that good emotion that we need to bring to life, that discovery, the discovery that after all the troubles of life, hope is lost, but it can grow again. It is to begin to do the work of hope. How do you do the work of hope? You listen. We refine our way to the returning of a real hope. We look for hope to re-emerge, to be reborn. And it happens in literature, in music, in theology, in art. For hope is more than a task of any one person. It's not just a lonely task. Hope needs to be put into a larger context. The larger context of its two partners, faith, hope, and love. We see those who have lost their hold on hope can become aware of communal context operating as they hear the words, "We will carry you for a time in the work of hope. You may have lost your hope for a time, but we will carry you for a time in the work of hope." We see that in the words of St. Paul, writing of hope. We see it in the Psalms, as the writers wrote of hope. We see it in the lives of millions of people, as they endure the vast traumas of war, as they endure and surpass, transcend the injuries and losses of the lifespan. We see hope flowing across the centuries, transcending our cultural boundaries, surviving the disease of different generations, being larger than the evil for which that prayer sought deliverance. Deliver us from evil. Always retaining the possibility, always returning to do the work of hope, the regeneration of hope. It calls for the helpful imagery, the metaphors of hope. We read one this morning from the Gospel of water becoming wine. All hope had gone, new hope was being regenerated. Several years ago, I visited a place called Brno in what was then Czechoslovakia. It was a very bleak city. The people lived mostly in Second World War, post-Second World War, reconstructed apartment buildings, closely resembling our very worst and ugliest of our high-rise commission flats from a previous era. At that time in that city, there were no trees or gardens clearly available. To recover hope, they needed to plant trees. They needed to plant colour back into their life. In psychological therapy, we have to do a lot of clearing away of the worn out and damaged areas. But we also need to do more than that. We need to plant trees. We need to replant the colour back into life. It's a metaphor, of course. Metaphorically speaking, we need to grow areas of the mind and spirit that will bring colour and warmth and courage back to life again. Often we lose it. Often we forget that it is a work needing to be done. Often we become so disgruntled that we blame other people for our loss of hope or a misunderstanding of what love really is, what hope really is. But again and again, we need to see that hope is a process. Hope is first of all a desire, an object. But more than that, it requires us to translate the objective into action, planned action, into a belief of what is possible, and then to create the emotional state, the good feelings that will flow with that and after that, so that as we take that pathway, it becomes a pathway of hope. So even though we may not have developed hope as a part of our personality in a continuing way through our lifetime, now is the time when, if we can think about it as a work of hope that we all need to do, we might all become good hopers, long hopers, strong hopers, conveying hope not only to ourselves in our own inner spirits, but also conveying it to other people. Would you please stand? Would you say with me, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and glory forever and ever. Amen. And now would you please stand for the communion hymn.